Everyone.
Good morning, everybody.
Hey. GM.
Give me one second. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
GM to everybody in the chat. Hardcore dropped the Miro board there. Okay. I'll share my screen in here too for you guys. Drax, you in a t-shirt? You outside right now? Yeah, it's a good day. I agree.
14 degrees Celsius. Not bad.
Weather's looking good on my end too. You guys should follow my series on Lens. I'm doing Gotchi Gardener. I'm setting up my garden, my IRL harvesters. So I got collectible lens posts for you guys. They're free to collect. Just you got to be following my account if you're on Lens. And then my Calm, the opposite, going hiking later in a snow-filled canyon. Okay.
Nice.
I don't get the Fahrenheit stuff, man. I don't get the conversions. They mess me up. All right, I guess we'll get started. Yeah, sure. Let's get started. The Miro board is in the chat. I'm just going to go through some of the notes on my end before we get into the main stuff for today. And then we'll go from there. And I think we also have Al, who's going to be speaking today. He might be in here, I think, near the end of the meeting. So, and he'll be speaking on the kinship burn proposal. Okay. All right, let's maybe start with you know, the DAO media funding proposal. We did a post-mortem on it, and I talked to Coder Dan, and I looked through some of the feedback, which honestly I don't think there was a whole lot of specific feedback. But looking back through it, it seems like in a general sense, those that proposal should have been ideally should have been two proposals, and so that's what we did. We've broken up sorry, look at Choina's thing. Yeah, so basically the proposal that didn't pass should have been two proposals. The first proposal should have been just for already completed deliverables, and then the second proposal should have been for future looking, forward looking funding for DAO hosting, DAO meeting hosting and media stuff. So there's a few ways we can move forward. I think from my end, I'm just going to focus, on this proposal here, and then probably have a subsequent proposal for continuous funding. But I think what the DAO needs to decide on here is, well, I don't even know if they need to decide, but we just need to make sure we're all on the same page on how the media is going to be delivered. And I want to make sure it's done in a way that everybody finds it useful, first of all. And so, I'll definitely make sure I get a feedback form by the end of the meeting out. But in a general sense, I think maybe centralized Aavegotchi DAO YouTube for content, and Aavegotchi DAO Twitter for announcements would be a great place to start for making sure you have a line for comms, and then you also have a line for delivery there. And if you want to stay up to date on what the DAO is doing, what I would do is I would go to the Twitter, and I would just keep your notifications on for that, so that way you're getting notified when there's a newsletter out, when there's a new video, a YouTube live stream, not a live stream, but a DAO meeting live stream out. You'll be in the loop that way. And so that might also be a really easy way to track metrics too. So, moving forward, we know kind of how well it's working, how many people are watching those videos. So that might be a nice, easy way to kind of address some of the issues people were having or some of the concerns people had. And I'm kind of curious to know what other people think about that. Just reading the chat. Is Hardcore trying the new tech this week? I'll be honest, I'm not really sure what Hardcore is building. I would rather hear from Hardcore and see what exactly that is. But in the meantime, we're using the traditional tech, I should say. So just Miro board and all that usual stuff. No futuristic. Just give me a minute. I'll get through all this and then you can come up and speak on that. Media delivery, that's that there. Establish needed positions and deliverables. So I think we can all agree that we probably need someone to host the Sunday DAO meeting. I'm happy to continue doing it if the DAO is happy with that. Streaming the call, we need someone streaming the call. It could be live streamed. Well, it could be live streamed from the restream directly to the DAO YouTube. And that would be done kind of passively in a sense. Processing audio and uploading to the Spotify. That's another job that can be done. And then aggregating information from Discord, general community, and just kind of getting like forum discussions, specific things people are saying, specific community concerns. That's kind of more of that's more of its own thing as well. Keeping weekly Miro boards, Substack clips. That's another thing I wanted to get your guys' feedback on. I'll get a feedback form out there, but do we find the Miro board useful? Are we liking the Miro board? Kind of curious to know what you guys' thoughts are on the Miro board that Hardcore puts together every week. And if we're finding it useful, I'm happy to keep going and using the Miro board as a way to put together our meetings. I find them, for me, they're helpful because I'm very much a visual learner. But like Mikey J is saying, I think Mikey J would prefer written agenda and bullet point format with links to forum posts and other relevant info. Okay. So interesting. Yeah, no futuristic, saying something simple. Yeah, and again, this is nothing against Hardcore or anything like that. I just want to know in terms of a tool, if there's a better tool Hardcore could use, or even if it's just compiling everything into a Google Doc every week, I don't mind doing that. That's actually less work. So something simple, shouldn't be a piece. Yeah, let's do a checkbox survey and output to all formats people use. A checkbox survey and output to all formats people use. So Mike Callum's asking, so Mikey J, is it something like what I got here? This is a basic, just like a Sunday DAO call, what I have in mind. It would be a lot longer because we have more things to talk about, but this is kind of what I just threw together for the meeting on my end of things. I could continue doing that, or we could just compile, we can, as a team, compile everything into one Google Doc. I don't mind doing that. I just don't know if we have any visual learners that would be affected by that. Also, no futuristic, like you do a lot of the clips and stuff. Do you find the Miro board slides help you, or are you using them in the clips at all, or are you finding them useful?
Hey, can I just answer that question real quick instead of typing it all out?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, the Miro board is helpful. the mural board in the current format has way too much information. I've conveyed this to hardcore before because I'm presenting a video. People learn in different ways: kinesthetic, visual, audio. This is the visual format. It can't be super complex and all over the place. I think it has to be made for like a 5-year-old so that people can go back, understand, and if they have to do, and you as the presenter, present the information. I don't think the mural board needs to be super complicated or have so much information because it creates information overload. And that's all I have to say.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Well said. And I totally agree. I think the whole purpose of the mural boards is to actually make it like an Eli 5 kind of format where you have not a lot of text. It's, mostly visual, and then just getting the points across. Honestly, hardcore, that is that's a that's not too bad. But what I would like to see is just, I think what futuristic speaking to is even more simplified than that. Like, just like even shorter bullet points, like not even sentences, just like the bare bones of it. Yeah. Another thing we'll talk about here in a second is just the AI tool stack, because there are some tools that we can adopt here that will help. And I think one of the things that could be helpful for hardcore is a meeting, not a meeting summarizer, a presentation summarizer. So it'll take all your points that you want to put in your mural board. It'll summarize them down to their basic elements, and then you could use that as your mural board. Let's read some other comments. Merkle Tree. This is not very nice on the eyes, even for a visual learner. Yeah, it can be a little bit much sometimes. Let's see where. Hefe, can you share a view-only link of your actual working docs so Mikey and I can self-follow? I would, but this is not the whole agenda for the meeting. This is just some notes I threw together for just like this little bit. But I'm happy to do that if that's something that would be valued. I'm happy to just take notes every week and throw them up on a little summary sheet for people to follow along. Yeah, true. Yeah, I'm open to anything, guys. Like the point here is to make sure the information's getting across. And if it's not, then we got to look at what we're doing critically and figure out what it is that's not working. And so what it sounds like here is the mural boards could be useful in format, but the way that the information is being presented on the mural board is a little bit too complex. That's what I'm hearing. It could be a useful tool if we take an Eli 5 approach and really just the most basic of points for each subject, and let me, I can elaborate on each one, expand on each point. And then secondary to that is the written summaries. Coder Dan, if people don't like looking at the board, then the board should be made in a more appealing way that makes them want to look at it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do here. I mean, if we're using the boards and nobody's using them, then that's not really, they're not going to be very useful. The slides on the mirror board are information overload. This is what I imagine as we saw. Yeah, it can be a lot of information sometimes, and I think that's something to work towards, is just making it more simplified for sure. All right, so I mean that's one of the things there. What about the clips? I find the clips pretty helpful for specific segments. I'm speaking to like the no futuristic clips. Oh, dump the clips. Okay. And that's coming from the producer, so we can't say we're yeah, exactly. Not enough people want or need it. And no futuristic, is that something you're seeing on your end too as a producer of these clips? You're on stage.
Generally, no, I wouldn't say that, because on Twitter they get a lot of views. YouTube, the longer clips, like it's basically the shortest clips go to my Twitter. The medium clips also either go to Twitter or to YouTube, and then YouTube now for all of the long clips. The short clips that are just like a summary of the subject, people jump in. The longer clips not so much. But I mean, there's enough pushback that it's like, fuck it, who cares? If we get a concise summary, then that's probably more useful for some people. I like to be able to listen. I think the live stream is the most important aspect because that's an undoctored stream of what's actually happening. So no one can accuse the record of being changed, which with these clips you can. But I would advocate for the live stream, which I think Hefe can do. Or Bounty.
Okay. No, I'm Zifa, in terms of hierarchy, I do agree. The recording itself, the bulk, the full live stream is probably the most important. Probably the most important because people can go in and catch up at the for the meeting after the fact. Which I know is a huge issue for our friends in other time zones. Let's see. Clips should be made for entertainment value, not information value. I kind of agree with Coder. We had a conversation there, Coder Dan, in regards to that if the clips were to be considered valuable, there would be specific things that we would need to do to kind of make them fit what we're trying to make them be, as entertainment. And so, proper thumbnails, all the SEO optimization and all this stuff that I don't think No Futuristic probably wants to even do for these clips. It's meant to be just like little clips for people to access certain parts of the meeting. So I guess the intended purpose doesn't really line up with what they should be. And so, yeah. And I mean, if someone wants to catch up during the meeting, they can go back. And what I can do is, again, another AI tool will take the most important parts of your meeting, and I can make sure I, say specific things at transitions, and it'll actually pick up on those, and it'll highlight the most important parts of the meeting. So if you want to go back, you want to listen to a certain part of the meeting, I'll make sure that I have little places you can jump to in the video. Yeah, and I agree. ZombieShepherd, you guys do a good job on A to Z of kind of covering a few DAO things. So maybe that's the angle. If you guys feel like there's something entertaining that happened at the DAO call that you might want to get out there for your own channel, feel free to do that. So just looking back on Mikey J's comment, my ideal scenario: written agenda 1 to 2 days beforehand. I could say, yeah, we could do a written agenda probably on a Saturday, because we do get some last minute stuff usually on Friday. But I got some rules I'm going to lay down here, some really basic things that should help with that. And yeah, so written agenda 1 to 2 days beforehand, recorded version of meeting available. Yeah, I mean, that will be live streamed right to the Aavegotchi DAO YouTube. So if you're following the YouTube, you got your notifications on, you get pinged right after the stream gets uploaded on its own. Meeting minutes distributed in 1 to 2 days following meeting. That can also be done. Again, thanks to Coder Dan, there's a AI tool called fireflies.ai. I don't think it works for Discord, so we might have to find some other way to actually, for it to actually watch what I'm doing. Or maybe I'll reach out to their team and see if they're looking for a Discord solution. But if you can listen to our Discord calls and actually just annotate a whole meeting, that might be easier. And then, then you can get your meeting minutes distributed right after the meeting, instead of midweek or later in the week, like it usually takes time to develop a blog post. Maybe you get just a simple draft, minutes draft right after the meeting. So that takes care of the clips, that takes care of the mural board, the written agenda. Okay. And then the last thing is the podcast. Do people listen to the podcast? Do you guys find, listening to the audio recordings useful? I've heard they're pretty useful because people tend to like to listen to it when they're at the gym or on the move in the car, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think a podcast honestly it should probably stay, because I know a lot of people like to just do something else, like gardening, and they might listen to the podcast and catch up, and that has a lot more value than a YouTube recording, because podcasts are made to just kind of walk around and listen to. With YouTube, like, you might get ads, they might turn off because of, like, maybe you turn your screen off. Like, there's a lot of kind of bad UX with watching a video on YouTube, trying to use it as a podcast.
Yeah, YouTube can be clunky for podcasts. And so I agree with just stripping the audio down and just uploading it to the Spotify, which Zombie Shepherd has been maintaining. Let's see. There's a lot of positive feedback for audio. Yeah, totally. Would like to see us deploy content on Zencaster. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really sure what Zencaster is, but I can look into that. Mikey J, personally, I use the podcast recording since I'm usually listening while running or mowing the lawn. Nice. Yeah, totally. Yes, Spotify. Well, I mean, that's another thing for the podcast. I am pretty mindful of when I am hosting these meetings. I try to like verbalize everything. So I'm reading your chats, and I'm reading everything on my page here. I'm talking it out. I'm talking about what I'm doing, what I'm saying as I'm saying it. And so that way, at least people listening to the podcast will get some context after all this gets removed. Yeah, I try and be mindful of the podcast as well. Yeah, podcast is a must. I'm seeing strong support for the podcast. Not everyone's auditory, of course. So yeah, podcast is a key. And so of course that comes to Hardcore's job, which I think is pretty important. I work with him pretty closely on these meetings, and one thing I would say towards Hardcore is, and I think he works really hard, but I think he also put in a lot more time into this than is actually needed at this point, because you have tools now that might actually be able to make your job easier. To put in maybe 1 to 2 hours instead of countless hours into the meeting, because I often find you get stressed out like doing all this stuff, and I can see burnout. Like, I can see burnout in people. I would hate to see community member like Hardcore burnout because of workload. So I have found AI enabled tool that might be really useful for us as a DAO, as a co-pilot. And yeah, so I think we should definitely talk about that, because I think there's a way here to reduce workload significantly and make you feel like your efforts are going a long way. And so the Miro board, we're saying that's a maybe if it can be simplified. Otherwise, Google Doc. Yeah, I agree with Dr. Wagner's points as well there. Okay, scheduled time slots. These are some rules. I'm gonna get these out there somewhere so we have them. But Friday cutoff for any submissions. This ties into Mikey J's point that he was talking about. If you guys want a meeting summary on the Saturday meetings, I can definitely provide a meeting summary on Saturday every week. But the rule on my end is also no submissions after Friday. So if you ask to come on to the meeting and speak on Saturday, if you post a proposal on Saturday, anything, you put up a forum post on Saturday, I'm not going to cover it. It's too short notice, and it just adds extra onto the meeting where there's already enough content. So usually by Friday, there's enough content to fill out our meeting. So if you have anything to add to the meeting, especially if you're going to be taking a speaking slot, reach out to me before Friday. Yeah, I agree. It tends to throw a wrench into things, and sometimes makes the meetings disorganized having those last minute entries. Again, interested speakers scheduled by Friday. Please contact me before Friday. It would be better. And so you have, if you're going to be speaking at the meetings at all from now on, you have to contact me to schedule a speaker slot. I'm not going to be inviting people up anymore. It's not going to be like, hey, I need to, say something for a quick second. It's not happening. You need to schedule me if you're going to be speaking, especially if it's something, I'll do my best to reach out to people if you got a proposal that you're going to be speaking on, and I can anticipate that. But that won't be every time. I think the responsibility should be on the proposer to schedule their time to speak. And I think everybody who is proposing on something should be able to speak on their proposal. So no more random assignments. I think that'll make the meetings more organized. And then this is something I'm going to work on for myself. Allocated time to each subject. And so I'm going to do the proposal review. That'll be like 10 to 15 minutes max. And then at that point, I got myself a little timer on Amazon because this is a challenge I personally have. And so, I like to go on and on about stuff. I ramble sometimes. It happens. But I'll try and keep it to 15 to 20 minutes per discussion. I'll have a little timer on my desk. It'll go off. So those are just some basic rules. I don't think anybody's going to have anything against these rules. They all make sense. I think it'll result in a more organized meeting. Yeah, assuming the next prop for this structure goes through. Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. I'm not going to take too much more time on this, but a few more things I wanted to share with you guys. DAO management tool stack. That's something I kind of went over already. Robin AI, look into that. It's a co-pilot for DAOs. Also, Fireflies AI or similar note-taking app. In addition to like the socials, YouTube, Twitter, all that. So that's basically our little tool management stack. Depending on how people feel, we might just remove Miro from the stack and just focus on, more simplified notes for everybody. If that's going to be easy. DAO meeting mindset and practices. Oh my God, you guys are going to love this. This is Daoistry. Shout out to Mike Callum for showing me this. This site is so awesome. It's not a project. It's not something you subscribe to. It is literally just like big brained DAO stuff, like how to be a good Daoist. How to be a good person in a DAO. And they basically talk about here. I'll go to Daoistry. So they have like these topics, wide topics that cover DAOs in terms of practices and mindsets, and how to basically take on specific aspects of a DAO. I think there's one here that really just stood out to me. I think Callum, you showed me this one, was the check-ins. So there's what they're suggesting here is a check-in feed, and this check-in feed would be a single source of truth for the community. You would have your collaborators, so knowing where they can help, not just like with bounties, but also proactively. So that's a contributor pool. Team coordinators, and so we have our DAO leaders. I would call them team coordinators to ensure that direction is coordinated and supported by the DAO. And then you have your DAO joiners, new people joining the DAO, making sure that they're staying in the loop. And so it goes through this whole idea of check-ins and what that actually means. I highly recommend you guys check this stuff out, man. There's a lot to read. There's a lot to read here if you want to just nerd out on like DAO governance stuff. And I think, looking into this stuff and adopting some of these things as our global mindsets might actually help us have healthier conversations in the DAO. So maybe I might look to summarize everything on this website and make a nice, clean, like cheat sheet someday. Or, y'all are welcome to do that if you feel like you want to. But this is really valuable, really helpful information here. So check out Daoistry. Getting some comments here. There's some conversation going on. I like this new structure. I believe having a full plan on Friday of what the DAO call will discuss would be helpful. Having time slots during the DAO call for these different discussions will make everything smooth and official. A nice run of show document. Yeah, thank you, sir. No futuristic, saying bounties are the way. Golden Cross is push for us to use D-Work bounty system, and this is a perfect candidate for use. It opens up an entire process to fair distribution of labor. That's going team prop route instead of piecemeal bounties. I mean, specific to what? I think that's, our DAO's coordination is not really our strength as a DAO. So, I mean, how are you thinking people taking these bounties will be able to coordinate on actually delivering, same level or better?
Yeah, it's easy, and I've stated this in the forum post that I put up that you're all welcome to go read. This work is technical work in a lot of ways. It's dissemination of information, it's a live stream, it's audio, right? And the hosting. These things are very binary in the sense of success and failure. You're either doing it right or you're not. You can tell very easily if someone's audio is off, if the stream sucks, or if the host isn't good, if the notes aren't concise, if the summary, there's not a lot of interpretation here. So I think it's a lot easier to set up a bounty where we have success and failure easy to quantify as opposed to it being a subjective matter.
So are you saying like a contributor pool for each of these positions?
Yeah.
Or
So
like
what I'm in my forum post that I put up, basically I'm asking the question if we should fund a bounty pool for this work. And if we're going to fund it, then we would fund somebody to create the whole system and then have it implemented. Part of what I'm thinking here is that we open it up. It would be basically election based. We use snapshot votes, SIG props to choose the candidates. Once, what we would initially do is leave it open to everybody to apply. They can demonstrate their work on a special DAO call where we can bring candidates up and they can show that they can do this. They can make their point for themselves. We have a formal election, and then these positions are bounties that run from 1 to 6 months. I'm thinking 1 to 3 months, just to keep it clean. People who have no reputation within the DAO, they can apply for this, but they would then be judged on a week-to-week basis. The week-to-week basis would be in these DAO calls at the end of the calls. 6 months is long. I just said open it up to 6 months. I say 1 to 3 is probably ideal. And for new people who have no reputation, it's week-to-week. At the end of the DAO call, we can do a quick informal poll that says, hey guys, is this working or is it not? And just based on those binaries of is the stream up, is the host doing his job, if we're doing that for the new people and they get vetted after a couple of weeks, they can now enter those bounties that are 1 month to 3 month. So then every 3 months, every 1 month, whatever, we have a new little quick election and see, do we want to change the people who are the candidates? Part of this would also basically build an understudy system. So we have multiple people we know who can host or who can live stream or who can handle the mirror board per se, or the document, whatever we end up with, so that they're backups, so that the people who are in the bounty, if they have a issue within their life, we have someone that can step in. We can discuss ways to compensate those people, but I think if we break it out into bounty systems like this, it makes it much easier for the work to be fairly distributed because we're using the bounties. It's an open process, and I think it can work. It's more, the most important thing here is to actually implement the system, which hasn't happened, and which is what I'm starting with the forum post. So definitely go there and drop some feedback. I've been pretty, everything I've said here, I've gone into greater detail into my ideas. Just check it out.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks for pointing us that way and checking that, for us to check that out. I think it's an interesting idea. I would say the big pro there is we would be empowering community members. Like, I was telling Coder Dan the other night, we have 50 to 60 people that show up in this call every Sunday. And in my eyes, all of you guys in here are going to be future DAO leaders. You're going to be major members of the future Aavegotchi community. And, the way I see myself, the way I would like to see myself is a mentor to all these people in here. And so I would love to see people from our audience coming up here and, hosting a meeting or, doing one aspect of this thing in terms of bounties. I think that's a great idea. It opens up that opportunity to move up. Now, one thing I think we will give up in that process, probably consistency, at least in the beginning. I think there's going to be a little bit more chaos, which is, I don't know, it might be fine, but I don't really know what to expect. I think it's something to maybe do a little small pilot program with or something, and then see. Um, let's see, Coder Dan. I'd still like to see Aavegotchi DAO media team that could host meetings, create content, pump the numbers, and a DAO attendance. Yeah. Honestly, I would I would rather have a dedicated team, but still have the bounties. Like, I think there should be a bounty component to like funding this sort of thing, because you're right. There should be a contributor pool, and so if there is a weekend where I can't do this for whatever reason, there should be bounties available to give to people to take on this sort of work, and there should be trusted people in place that we can offer that work to. Yeah, the squad should be the one giving out bounties. I'm all for the idea of working groups, task forces. I think it's a great idea. I think DAOs could, continue adopting that model of having little working groups underneath the main DAO, and maybe eventually become their own entities. But the DAO shouldn't be reviewing bounties in Coder Dan's opinion.
All right, I respect that. I mean, Jesse was the one that pointed it out, but I get that there's sometimes differences in opinions in here. So I think the next step is then what's going to be the process for forming this team? Because realistically, other people can do this work. I don't want to do it, to be honest. Like, it's kind of, but other people can do this work. Are we opening this up to a competitive bid environment, or is it just going to be this team is going to put something up and that's pretty much the end of the story?
I was going to put up a
I think
revised
you can
prop.
have both, right? Can't
Yeah.
we could theoretically have another group of individuals in the DAO that say we can do a better job. So you could have multiple vendors or squads, if you will, competing for the same job, which is the DAO wants people to host the meetings, create the content, and in my opinion, this team should also help with pumping the numbers of DAO attendance. So currently, the DAO media team was the first ones to apply for this bounty, and unfortunately, it didn't go through. So, in my opinion, it's a bit of an overreaction to say, well, let's throw away the whole idea of teams. Let's just go to bounties and do that. Whereas maybe what I'd be doing if I were in your guys' position was saying, what like you're doing now, basically, what does the DAO want, and how can we use our team and our skill sets to fulfill that, and secure maybe a 3-month period for our team to execute on that and prove that we have the skill set to do that. And once that 3-month period is over, there could be another re-election.
Hey, I totally agree.
Basically, what you're saying is a bounty. I mean, but it's not a bounty. It's a bounty in most people's mind is like a small one-off kind of thing, and it needs a reviewer. So especially if we're using D-Work, because right now we don't have anyone reviewing things on D-Work. So
that's been the biggest challenge. We can't use D-Work, and I've been saying it for months. If the DAO doesn't want a review team, D-Work is useless.
Yeah,
that's basically it.
I want to point out
have bounties without reviewers.
I want to point out though, because I think there's some misconception here. My part of the DAO media team, I didn't join a DAO media team. I initially signed up as a bounty. Like, I was asked, I got feedback from the DAO to do this work. I did it for free for a little while, applied for a bounty, got the bounty. So my approach has always been bounties, which I thought worked, and my bounty was a limited 3. It's exactly kind of the setup that I had before. So that's where the media team thing doesn't really make sense to me, because it was already a start of me as an individual coming in and fulfilling work.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say the reviewer in that case was me. I was the PM, so I was reviewing all those bounties. I was issuing them and reviewing them. It was one guy, but the DAO didn't want a review team at that point. I was pushing for that, and without a review team, I don't think bounties are all that effective, because you do need oversight to actually manage the bounty, issue it, make sure things are being done right. Or the other side of it is just having a working group that is assessed by the DAO, and then they can issue their own bounties if they need. they can get an allocated budget for bounties. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we're gonna put up a proposal for this working group. But if there are other proposals, like let's get them up there. Let's post alternative, solutions. Dr. Wagme, the media team prop would have passed if been live longer and we had clarity on ThriveCoin. Agree with Dan that we shouldn't throw that concept away. The D-Work reviewers are easily sourced from prior paid DAO contributions. Hardcore saying we can have reviewers, just add every wallet that's work for the DAO. Sure, let's revisit it. That's Artcore. Mikey J, here we go. We really need a team to set up some kind of organizational structure. This harkens back to the organizational chart discussion from earlier. There needs to be some sort of logical structure in place. It needs to be a push, not pull. Now it sets an agenda of work to be done, splits into business units, and elects members to those units to manage that area of the budget. I think if we take the old org charts and just replace leads with teams, we basically got it. Yeah, man, I think we were onto something there when we were putting that stuff together there. And I don't think, maybe not all the information in the boxes was congruent, but the whole overall structure of that chart was actually quite beautiful. I think we should definitely revisit that. See if we can make use of that. Yeah, sorry for taking up such a large amount of the meeting here, but these are things that I wanted to make sure we straighten out moving forward. It seemed like a pretty important topic to go over. So we won't get through all the DAO discussion today, unfortunately. We can always roll over anything we don't cover to next week. But I'm going to move on from this. I appreciate you guys giving your feedback on all this stuff, and I'm going to take that into account when we put together a subsequent proposal. Yeah, the DAO never finished its statement of purpose. Seems like that would probably inform a lot of what type of squads the DAO needs. Speaking of squads and working groups, would the DAO be open to just forming a working group around the mission and vision statement? We have so much aggregated discussion and data and just stuff around the mission and vision at this point that I feel like if we were to put up a proposal to say, hey, look, we're going to get these 10 people together. They've been the most active with this discussion. We'll request a certain amount of a small budget to at least make sure the time is being allocated for this, and then just like crank out some statements here because I mean, no futuristic. There's been nothing actionable. I agree. There's been nothing actionable that's been done with that. But I think at this point we can no longer, like the DAO no longer has this ability to say, well, I wasn't included in the conversation. Well, then you must have not been here for 6 months because we've been talking about that long. I think we just need to run it home. I think we just need a team to run it home, honestly. And so if you're interested in some sort of a working group, I know there's like a bunch of people in here that would be very valuable to have, on a discussion or a process like that. But yeah. I mean, no futuristic. It's only a waste of time if we don't do anything with everything we've discussed. If we run it home, it's not a waste of time. It took a long time, but it's not a waste of time. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's great material to source a lot of this information from, too. Yeah, Anthony Shepard, I agree. Mission, vision, value. Okay, yeah. Last thing here, subsequent DAO meeting proposal. We'll get something together for that. Moving on. Quickly gonna just cover some proposals here in the past that are old proposals. Let's see here. Actually, I'm just gonna run to this thing and run through it because it's just easier. Okay, so we have let's start here. Liquidity provision, reimbursement of the DAO. This one has, I believe, 18 hours left on it. created by Maxi Crouton. This is basically filling us in on where the $7 million in liquidity allocation has been going, or what has been used. So these funds, 5 million used prior to the curve closing, came from the DAO wallet, and they took roughly 4 million worth of Ghost and 1 million worth of DAI. So they need to reimburse the DAO wallet with the 5 million borrowed. So there's two options: either reimburse all the funds, 5 million in DAI, or reimburse 4 million worth of Ghost in Ghost. So it means you're using DAI to buy back Ghost. Yeah. I'm getting distracted by comments here in the chat also. Yeah, no futuristic. We need a mission and vision statement. We also need to fix the process of how we get there. These two statements are true. Dr. Wagme, my take is that there's a vacuum of leadership to make the final push and translate discussions and ideas to execution. It's due to DAO structure, but I don't see how this gets better anytime soon. Yeah, there's some challenges there for sure. Yeah, chicken and egg problem. I agree, Mikey J. So it seems like we're going back and forth about mission and vision. I think the way forward with that is honestly just to get a group together, get the DAO to sponsor them. We have more than enough discussion amongst the greater DAO and awareness amongst the greater DAO through discussions we've had that we are, that we have this information. I'm just going to run through these proposals real quick here. So yeah, this one is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got 6 options here on what you want to do, but basically how this DAI will get reimbursed back to the original wallet. DAO meeting management and delivery. This is just my one-time payment for work that I've already completed. 6.1 million out of 9 million quorum, and it seems like 89% in favor of that. And that's just asking for previous work paid. Next up, you have Agip 70 Alchemica and Glitter Task Force funding. This is funding for the Alchemica and Glitter Task Force. And so, yeah, Maxi Crouton, I'm just running through the proposals right now. If there are any questions, I'll address them. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, Alchemica and Glitter Task Force funding for their team there, kinship channeling for immaterial, glitter and emission sinks and research, Maxi Crouton, Web and Umami, glitter raffles, Solo Geist, guild and district tokenomics, that's hardcore and Al, new Alchemica and glitter sinks ideation, that's Gotchinomics and coolness, and then media work. Yeah, what's going on with the media work with this proposal? Because are these going to be live streamed? Are these going to be recorded calls that the DAO can go back and listen to? Because I know I think No Futuristic, you were saying that was the whole point of being like on this team. Is the economics task force going to be like publishing their meetings or meeting minutes at least?
Hey, so far I've recorded all the meetings. I've chopped them up into the videos as appropriate. I provided them to Immaterial. Immaterial has, I believe, put them in a forum post that was about our Glitter and Alchemica team. He's been using AI to summarize the clips I have and then put up the audio as well that I provide. So those are somewhere in this, I believe, in this Discord. It might be in the Glitter and Alchemica Discord. I advocated for live streaming. The majority of the task force members did not want this live streamed. There was pushback due to people not wanting to dox their voices. So right now they're recorded and then chopped up into smaller summaries and then Max Immaterial, I guess, throws them through Chat GPT and get some summaries from them and post them somewhere in this Discord.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, that's good. As long as we know where they're at, maybe I might go do some digging, or I might ask one of you guys, just so we know where it is, so we can direct people if they're curious about whatever's discussed lately. That's understandable. I understand that with the doxing. My follow up question was actually going to be if they would like to get these uploaded to the Aavegotchi DAO YouTube, because it is kind of like a DAO thing, so it kind of makes sense to put that up there. But yeah, some of them might have some issues with that. Okay, and then so this funding, yeah, so they're asking for 5 hours of work per week at 25 ghosts an hour for each of the members on a monthly rolling basis. So total funding for this month will be 10 members times 25 ghosts an hour times 5 hours a week times 4 weeks. So this is another thing we should discuss here is the last couple of weeks we've seen proposals denominated in Ghost. We're seeing proposals denominating USD, and we're seeing proposals denominating Ghost converted to USDC. I think as a DAO, we should probably have a standard way of funding projects. I don't know whose responsibility that is to create those standards, whether it's as a DAO, we have to vote on that, or if that's just like a treasury thing. But like this amount will change if Ghost goes to $1.50, like it has been in the recent past. This is significantly more than probably where it's at right now, probably like $1.07 or something like that, right? So I think we should make sure we're denominating everything in standard price. Like if we're gonna be going USDC, I would like to see everything denominated in USDC. 25 ghosts an hour, it can change it. That amount changes every day now because of the volatility. Unbound ghost token volatility. Short-term projects and bounties in Ghost. Longitudinal projects and teams in DAI and USD equivalent of Ghost. Can you elaborate on that? Like, what's the logic behind that? I mean, to me, it seems like you could just do everything in DAI, and that would probably give you an optimal estimate of like how much work is worth. To get the text excerpt. Work on Aavegotchi DAO live events task force, browsing is a waste of time. My biggest reason for not wanting to contribute more in DAO right now is that the fact there's no structure and process. It's just not the type of like selling. Dr. Wagme, volatility isn't as much of an issue for short-term deliverable. I'm also fine with just using DAI. I think what it's going to create long-term is probably some resent, situation-specific resent, where projects short-term bounties tend to get lucky and ghost token pumps. And it's like, well, 2 weeks ago, our sig prop core prop process is always 2 weeks. So it's like, well, 2 weeks ago, the DAO agreed to pay you $5,000, and now we've just paid you $7,500. You know what I mean? I don't know if it's just good fiscal treasury management, because it's like, yeah, we just literally paid this guy more money because the ghost token pumped over the last 2 weeks. And so I think it is a conversation to have, because we never really thought about this in the past. Ghost token was comfy. It was stable. You could guess that over a 2-week period, it's probably not going to do very much. But now that's not the case. I mean, imagine agreeing to this 5,000 ghost, amount, and then 2 weeks from now, we get some sort of a crazy pump or a lot of money coming in. It will happen. And ghost token is now $2, and so our initial $5,000 payments now $10,000. And I agree. If it's a small bounty, if it's like, we're paying someone 200 ghosts or something to do like a little one-time thing, maybe that makes sense. Especially if that person is banking on the future ghost token price and is maybe asking for a little less ghost than they would ask for in dollars an hour, then maybe that makes sense. But I don't like this double standard that's forming here of making some things in Ghost and some in USD. I was actually told by a director recently to change a Ghost proposal to USDC because the directors didn't feel comfortable doing swaps. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I was told. And so then to see something denominated in Ghost, it doesn't make sense anymore. I think everything should be denominated in USDC or DAI. Just gonna read some comments here. Hardcore, when people get allocated funds, the funds should be purchased and staged. The price at disbursement is irrelevant. If you bought them the ghost when they passed the prop. I mean, that was another thing I put out there is if we're going to denominate them in ghost, then like one of the proposals I put out there before all this, it was denominated in ghost at the time of the SIG prop snapshot. So if it passed, it would be paid out. That ghost would be purchased when the SIG prop passed or when the core prop passed. I mean, Trislet, another good point here. Trislet, there's a chance that it also goes the other way though. Accepting ghost means also accepting it might go down and the payout is less than expected. True, but then now you shift that, that those negative emotions from the DAO that's paying it out to now the contributor who's getting paid, and now they feel shafted because it's like, well, I asked for Ghost of 5,000 Ghost 2 weeks ago, and Ghost is now 50 cents. Well, it's only worth $2,500 now. So that's, to me, that seems like, it would be on the person asking for the Ghost at the end of the day, but like, this is not going to feel good, Dr. Wagme, maybe let's just do DAI. That way we guarantee no sell pressure on ghosts and perhaps have buy pressure. Our DAO treasury is largely in stablecoin anyways. I agree with Dr. Wagme's point, to be honest. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page with this because I think it's going to start. I feel like over time there's going to be specific situations that arise that might cause either negative sentiment towards the DAO specifically or negative sentiment inwards towards the person asking for this money. I agree. Yeah, no future. I agree with this since we do have stables. Musashi, soon you'll have to learn to denominate other things than the fiat dollar. That day is coming for sure. That's what we do with PC salaries for some. Okay. Well, it sounds like people aren't like against being paid in DAI, and I'm not either. Certainly moving forward, I'm happy to just request everything I request in DAI, just for clarity purposes. It's a unit of measurement we all understand and can compare from one proposal to the next. Probably easier accounting for the treasury too, right? So okay. Maxi Crouton, I'm planning to submit a draft of a standard form for funding request. Didn't have it this time. Okay, perfect. Yeah, looking forward to that. Coded dance around block for what? Okay, so you don't want a USD denominated amount. It's like 2,000 worth of ghost. 2,000 worth of ghost.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what we can do here. I'm a little confused by Choina's comment. As a director, I want to see the request in the token and a number of that token, not a token in USD. So the easiest way for accounting would just be to say we want 2,000 USD worth of Ghost, because so then when they receive it, it's still 2,000 USD worth, so they can still, if they needed to pay for something in USD, they could do that, or they could just ask for 2,000 DAI. Like if they want to get Ghost, can't they just ask for it in a DAI denominated amount?
Oh man, I wouldn't sleep very well if I did that, because honestly, think like the way I think about it is, if you say I want 2,000 USD worth of Ghost, my DJ part of my mind is I'm like hoping I get a lot of Ghost, right? But if Ghost pumps, then at the end of my 2-week period when it's time to get paid out, it's like, all right, well, I got half the amount of Ghost. It's
Sorry, I
just
keep getting kicked off the stage. I don't know why.
oh yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay.
Yeah,
So do the directors have an issue with that? I'm just trying to.
well, yeah, it was a point that was
Okay,
brought up
China
to me
doesn't
by
want that. Okay.
yeah, it was a point that one of the directors brought up to me, that they were concerned about the way um that there's no uniform way to ask for funding from the treasury, and that people are starting to come up with their own ways, or there's no uniformity there at all, and so maybe sticking with one unit like DAI might make sense across the board.
China, why
And
would you need to swap it though? Well, you don't need to swap anything. You have the Ghost, right? Are we saying because you don't have Ghost that you need to swap? I'm assuming that the DAO treasury has Ghost, so you would just be paying out the Ghost at a certain rate, basically the Ghost USDC rate on that day. You can just do spot. Couldn't we just that could be part of the proposal template, that all Ghost is paid in spot, calculated at the USD rate when the transaction is created. We don't do any like fancy, rolling averages or anything. We just pay at spot whatever the rate is when we make the transaction. So generally, it's not going to change that much in 2 or 3 hours or within 24 hours when the proposal, when the transaction to disperse the funds is made. I mean,
okay,
the Notes is Safe will tell you the price of it, I think.
yeah, Mikey J saying we could use the CoinGecko API as a truth source as well. So what you guys do at Pixelcraft is, if someone's getting paid, let's say $1,000 or $2,000 every 2 weeks, you would, at the end of the 2 weeks, you would just pay them in Ghost at whatever price the Ghost is at there, right? So if it's $1, they would get 2,000 Ghosts, and if it's like $2, they get 1,000 Ghosts. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, it is volatile. I can get that if it did go up 20% or down 20% in that period that it takes the directors to sign a transaction, that there could be some annoyance there. So I get it. It's a volatile coin, and we have 9 signers, of which we require 5 from around the world. So it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to move on through some of these proposals. I think we might just have enough time in the meeting just to get through these proposals active right now, and then we'll follow up on our other deeper discussions next week. So just wanted to touch on, I see Maxi Crouton is in the house. So if you would like to come up on stage, sir, and speak a little bit about the DAO Director's Treasury Officer role and your running of it, that would be great. Otherwise, I'll run through this proposal, just a brief overview of it. See, Maxi's typing. Yep, 5 minutes. Sure. Yeah, I'll come back around to this one. Channeling Alchemica through a -2 kinship burn. This was initially brought up by Yannick. And so Yannick and Al have worked together on this to put together an iterated proposal. So this proposal reattempts to change the kinship mechanics so that kinship points are burned during each Gotchi channeling event. And so additionally, a new rental permission will also be added for Aavegotchis that on default be set to no to avoid player friction with accidental kinship burning. So I think that was one of the issues that was brought up. Some benefits of this proposal: players will immediately face trade-offs for how to use kinship. So this adds a little bit of strategy into your rarity farming as well. I think another a side effect of this is we'll probably see a lot of higher kinship gotchis, probably no longer channeling, which it might reduce emissions on Alchemica as a result as well. Alchemica emissions should lower as players opt to save points for kinship leaderboard ranking funded by Aavegotchi protocol instead of spending them to expand their gotchiverse assets. So there's some graph of emissions, assuming the top 150 gotchis stop channeling, and just some real potential risks here. Players with newly summoned or low kinship gotchis will lose channeling abilities if they want their kinship to grow. Counter engagement is less engagement with Aavegotchis overall due to expected loss of channeling. So this proposal is 3.9 out of 9 million quorum with 3.1 million votes in favor of. That's 79%. We've discussed this proposal, or not this proposal, but we've discussed this topic pretty extensively. If Al or Yannick do have anything to say on it, feel free to type in the chat, or you can speak on stage very briefly. Oh, Discord's being very weird right now. Hefe, can we mention Ghost Ship? I will mention Ghost Ship very quickly here. T-Bird has been working really hard on Ghost Ship. He's been working hard seasonally on the Ghost Ship. And we want to represent Aavegotchi on this amazing these voyages he goes on by Aavegotchi. Does anyone have a picture of the Aavegotchi sail that he's trying to get made right now? So he wants to put an Aavegotchi logo, a giant Aavegotchi logo on his sail, because what he's finding is just the 2 hours or 3 hours that he spends on a charter with his clients. Many of them become curious about Aavegotchi, and it's become a great moment for him to kind of onboard people through these sailings. And so I think there's a opportunity for the DAO to embrace this a little bit and actually get an official commissioned sail for the Aavegotchi, for the Ghost Ship, honestly. And T-Bird, if you'd like to mention some of your conversions there. I know you've had some really great conversions just on these charters. With one gentleman, I think specifically buying, like, he's up to 13 gotchis at this point. This guy, he really got the gotchi bug during one of the sales. I think there might be a couple other cases like that, but it's definitely something where the DAO could have an onboarding experience on the water. And by looking at the first designs of the sail there and T-Bird's quote, it doesn't sound like it'd be a super heavy expenditure for the DAO, and something that would be evergreen. So long as the sail, for as long as the sail lasts, it would be an evergreen promotional and onboarding opportunity with T-Bird. So I wanted to get that out there, get people thinking about it. We've been joking around about the Ghost Ship for like a year and a half, but I think maybe it's time that the DAO seriously considers this. There's a forum discussion going on in the Discord DAO thread if you want to check that out. But I think we have an opportunity here. We should check that out. Yeah, you onboarded, yeah, Tashina Miguel. And honestly, doing a live stream with him on the boat was pretty amazing. But anyway, back to the proposal review here real quick. Maxi Crouton, are you in the house? Can you come up on stage real quick? Just talk about your role as DAO director. Now I'm running for the treasury position. Maxi's taking his nightly Sunday bath. You know what? It's all right, sir. If you can't come up, I'm just going to quickly run through your proposal here, give people an idea where it's at, and then we can always discuss further. So this is the DAO director, Maxi Crouton, and this is the running of the first ever DAO Treasury Discord, or the DAO Foundation um, Treasury Officer. And so the purpose of the treasurer would be ensure all movement of funds as to the DAO is completely clear without misinterpretation possible. Ensure all movement of funds is smooth. Swap contracts have sufficient funds. Transfer of funds is done in a timely manner. Prepare a monthly summary of the DAO treasury that is accessible to all. Stay informed about DAO proposals, ongoing funding, and the status of the treasury. And so what I've heard from the DAO directors is that their sole purpose as DAO directors is to be the signers of transactions. But of course, what I've seen in the last couple of weeks here is that there's a lot more of an involved role with treasury management here it's distributed right now amongst the 9 directors, but there has to be a role that specifically takes care of this so that the other 8 can simply just focus on signing of transactions. And so I see this being the position for that. Dr. Wagme, I'm a strong advocate for Maxi in this role. I would love to see him work with Mikey J and E-Tree in making this work viewable and accessible to the community. Maxi is a steal at this price for such an important job. Yeah.
Are there any deliverables associated with this?
So like so in terms of deliverables,
monthly summary, okay.
Yeah, the monthly summary is the hard deliverable, but I think there's also some just like passive stuff that he's like ongoing stuff that he's going to be doing here. It sounds like. Now, how are we open? So this is kind of a little side thought, but are we open to using like AI tools to actually like generate these treasury reports? Or is that something that well, you know what? I'm not an expert on this. I'll leave it to Maxi, but I'll definitely reach out to you, Maxi, in your DMs because I got some ideas. But very happy with this. And are there one more question? Are there any additional people running for treasury officer, or just within the directors, you guys feel comfortable just nominating Maxi as the inaugural officer? Here we go. Invite to speak. Maxi Crouton, welcome up on
Hey,
stage.
hello.
Dude.
Do you hear me?
GM. Yep. Oh
GM
yeah.
and Jim. Yeah, I'm running for this role. In fact, between the directors, I was a bit the guy that is, asking to everyone to, I would say, sign the transaction because we need to fund, I would say, the buyback contract or so on. And yeah, one day I said, oh, maybe I can apply for this role because I was always I was seeing people to sign transaction and so on. And yeah, I said, oh, okay, I can maybe ask the DAO what the DAO think about this role and take it. I think it's important to have someone which have, I would say, a big picture of the DAO funds and what we have and what has to be done, like funding the contracts, interacting with them to change the buyback amount and buyback amount per day and so on. So yeah, I think it's important to have someone to do this role. It's not, I would say, a big role. It's why it's not, I would say, paid a lot, but I plan to take like 2 or 3 hours every morning to do this role. Yeah, doing the summary is also a part of the role, but I don't think it's the main hard deliverables of this role. It's more to ensure that all movement of funds are fluid, no blocking time in and having just really a funding process that is fluid.
Yeah, okay, this makes sense. I see people in the chat saying that you're already sort of doing this, on a voluntary basis. So it seems like they feel comfortable from what I'm seeing in the chat with you being in this position. To Dan's point, what are some of the, in addition to the monthly summary of the DAO Treasury, do you see there being other like hard deliverables, or is this more of a the treasurer role is more of like an ongoing role? You have things like you said, 2 to 3 hours every morning that you're going to be doing specific to treasury management.
No, I think that the treasury management is for the DAO and the DAO has to vote on which protocol DAO want to put the treasury to yield on it. But I will maybe I can advise the DAO and ask other protocol. I would say be the reference person to communicate with the other protocols to yield on the treasury. But
okay,
yeah, I mean I can, but yeah, I can.
So so I guess being the advisory part of it's also an additional, I guess would be an additional, not deliverable, but like a benefit.
Yeah, the art deliverable was really the monthly summary of the DAO treasury, because sometimes we have people asking in the DAO discussion channel in the Discord, what was this transaction, or why is the contract not funded? Someone has to answer these questions. So
Okay. Yeah, so you would be the point of contact essentially for like these sorts of concerns also then.
Yeah.
And I guess it sounds like you already have been the point of contact for this, and so you'd be taking on basically a lot of those distributed roles that the 9 directors are sharing right now, and you'd be taking care of that with the other 8 directors being basically just signers or executors of these transactions, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really to have one person that will be focused on having everything going smooth in the every funding requests. So yeah, I don't think I think it's the role of every director to be aware of what the DAO is doing. But yeah, you can't be aware of that. You have to interact with the buyback contract to lower the amount every day, or you can be aware of everything. So I think that we have to have someone that is, I would say, managing or let's say leading the directors.
Yeah, totally. I mean, to McCallum's point, just one last question here. Do you see there being a term length specifically for not the DAO director role, but specifically the treasury officer role? Do you think there should be, I don't know, like a specific term, amount of time before re-election for that?
What do you mean? Didn't get it.
For the for the DAO directors, that's already been established when there's re-election. Should there be an established amount of time for the treasury officer to be in that role, or do you see that election coinciding with the next director's election? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I didn't think about that, to be honest. So yeah.
I just want your opinion. I just want your thoughts on it, even if you haven't thought of it. How are we thinking about re-elections for this specific role?
Yeah, we can have re-election, but I plan to be a long time, I would say, community member of the Aavegotchi protocol. So, but yeah, we can have re-election for sure. I'm open to it if someone want to apply for this role. In fact,
we're not talking about re-election right now. We want you to be this, but yeah, no. What I'm saying is, it might be a good idea in your core proposal to add add something in there that says, this treasury officer role will also go up for re-election when the rest of the director roles go up for re-election. I think it's once a year, right? That we're supposed to have a re-election.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, if I'm not reelected, obviously we have to have another treasury officer. But yeah, I will ask for the corp to I would say to mention that mention what we said.
Well, it sounds like the DAO is big fans of you being in this treasury officer role, and we appreciate you taking that up.
Just a couple quick things for me here.
Go ahead.
The directors group is unanimous with supporting Maxi Crouton into this role. He has been enthusiastic and demonstrated expertise in his understanding of the contract language and interaction with it. The only thing for me on the term length is if we have a bad signer for a year, if we have a bad director for a year, it's not going to be detrimental to the directorship operating, because we could just essentially dance around that individual. But if we have a bad officer committed for a year, we won't have opportunity as a DAO to improve our process for an entire annual. And I'm not necessarily in love with that. I think that if we did quarterly elections for the officer roles, it's a really easy way to keep a temperature check on contribution and efficiency. And I anticipate that Maxi would roll for this treasurer every quarter, practically unopposed, and it would be kind of just clerical, honestly. But it gives us as a DAO an opportunity to have a say in the particular operational capacities. The director signers is one thing, but in these officer capacities, we're going to want to see some really high quality performance from these individuals.
You're not speaking specifically to Maxi here. It sounds like you're talking more long term, over a longer period of time. That there could be a day where you have an officer that maybe isn't performing to the level that the DAO is happy with. In that case, at least there's something put in there, a clause in the structure where the DAO could actually hold a quarterly re-election to remove that individual as an officer and get somebody else in there who's willing to kind of step it up. If I'm getting that correctly.
Sorry, I got lost in Discord. Yeah, exactly my thought on it. Because there's not just the treasurer position from Maxi Crouton. The foundation formation documents alluded to a president and a vice president role. Those are not being activated at this time, but eventually, if there's a need for those, we'd also want to kind of enunciate what those performance successes look like for those increased compensation roles. Just something to consider.
Okay, so quarterly could be an option there.
Maybe quarterly is quite, I would say, too often. I would more say like every 6 months.
6 months. Mm-hmm.
Or year, I don't know. But
I'm really bad at devil's advocate. I really am bad at it, and it's a problem of mine. But if you screw something up in a month, this isn't about you specifically, like Hefe said. I'm completely supportive of you in this role. But if any of the officers screw something up in a month, I think that would already be the DAO wanting to exit that operational capacity, and then we'd be married to it for the next 5 months. And so I like frequency, but that's just my opinion in general.
Yeah, but I can't really arm the DAO. I think I'm not making any decision. I'm like leading the I would say the directors to do the transaction on time, in due time. But I'm not really. I can't really arm the DAO. I think because. I don't think I can, in fact.
Actually, so Coder Gan's just putting a thing here, clause 39 from this is from the Constitution. The directors have the power exercisable by directors' resolution to appoint or remove the secretary or any assistant secretary, provided always that there shall at all times be a qualified person as defined under the Foundation Companies Act, appointed as a secretary. And no secretary shall cease to hold the office until a qualified person has been appointed. So it seems like actually the other 8 directors at any point really could remove this person. It wouldn't have to be a quarterly re-election. Actually, it would be this person sucks. Let's get him out of there. It would be you could actually take care of it that very month that the issue arose, I think.
Yeah, but I agree that we have to specify a time in the proposal. Otherwise, even if you have someone that is, I would say, bad at his job, if there is no purpose, if there is an automatic re-election every year, it will be hard to, I would say, fire him, because you will have to have someone that is making the proposal to fire the bad person. But I think it's important to specify a time in the proposal.
Yeah, cool. I'm into all of it. Yeah, with the recall ability to be called on spot in the demand or need of. That's very comforting as well, actually. Thanks, Dan, for checking back on that charter language. And in general, Maxi, if you maybe just set it for 6 months and/or on the annual when the foundation directors close, as long as there's an opportunity for other people to naturally nominate themselves to be it for the next annual, and as long as the directors have the ability to recall bad performance at will, then I'm satisfied.
I just want to clarify some of the language here with Coder Dan, what he posted there. Secretary and officer, are they the same thing, or is secretary completely different? Is that referring to like a director? But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
so the foundation must have the secretary, and yeah, just to be clear, he's not applying for secretary. He's applying for treasurer, which if you search the doc for that word, it doesn't come up. So it seems like this isn't a position that is covered by the foundation. It would be more of like an off chain an on chain kind of position. But I'm checking here. I don't think there's anything about this.
Find the reference in there to the president and vice president officer roles. I thought all three of those were kind of grouped together in the definitions of the officers.
Yeah, I'm checking.
So someone needs to build a Aavegotchi DAO constitution bot with GPT-4, so we can just ask it these things during the meeting. And then
yeah, you
and then
can
we'll
probably
go on.
just dump this entire thing into Chat GPT and ask it questions.
You know what, Hefe? It's a great idea, man. We have Spark trial from Community One with the team over there. I could easily just feed it this pet charter formation of the directors, and it'll at least know better than any of the 9 of us what the hell's going on.
Yeah, DAO charter bot. We can do it. I mean, here's the thing, dude. Like the last couple weeks, I've been so excited. I've taken some time away from everything else in my life to focus on AI and level up my skills there, because it really, I feel almost superhuman using some of this stuff sometimes. It's really incredible. Dr. Wagme, we can use our SOP for removal of Maxi if he ever goes rogue.
Perfect. That's exactly. Yeah, as long as those rails are in place.
As long as anything in the SOP supersedes, you know what I mean, in terms of hierarchy, as long as this DAO constitution does not have hierarchy over, it doesn't say anywhere that it does, but there's really cool tools we can go through, but I'm not gonna waste time on that. Maxi Crouton, this has been a good conversation. I think the DAO overall fully supports your role as treasury officer. I think we need to make some clarifications regarding the constitution and just make sure we have either terms for removal or we have a term for serving the position. One or the other, either would be okay. I think the DAO is more leaning towards just honoring the constitution and possibly using the SOP as a backup. But if Coder Dan finds that clarification in the language, we can.
Yeah, I don't see anything about. I think that might have gotten removed because we didn't have a need for it, but I'd have to look at the previous versions.
Changes the process a little bit. If the charter doesn't have any language in it defining it or sorting it, then we're self-defining it, which I'm still supportive of it. And I'll speak as one of the 9 directors that I'm very supportive of one individual being essentially responsible and liable for screwing up the transaction spin-ups. So that way it's not just a haphazard thing where whoever's available wants to participate suddenly is able to do it. There's going to be a difference in quality and expectation if we create a single point that's liable for creating those things. A little bit like how Big Flex is always a core prop writer. We don't all just do it willy-nilly. There is kind of a pipe. And so I'm still a big supporter of that for Maxi Crouton to have that role amongst the DAO directors. It has shown itself to be the most needed role right now at this stage of our maturity as an organization. We need someone to help guide and be responsible for the transaction management. But maybe we just need to get some better definition of exactly what we're looking at if that is not already in the charter.
just to clarify, when you say liable, that's a legal word. So, really, there should be no situation where one individual.
Oh, you got rugged.
When he leads to, I'm sure he'll be right back here.
Mid sentence.
But yeah, there he goes.
I keep getting booted every time I talk. I keep getting booted. Just before I get booted again, all the signers, like when you sign, you should be verifying. Don't just blindly sign, and that's really for all the directors. Like, if mistakes are made, right, and people need to. The signers also need to double check the work of anyone who's creating a transaction. It's very important.
Yeah, for sure.
So I like that. Go ahead, Maxi.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm sure I can't harm the DAO because I will just I would say make sure that the transactions are done in due time, and I will not be able to sign a transaction on myself. So all the other directors will, I would say, will still be liable for what they sign. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we're just crossing a little bit of wires here. Choina brought up a good point there too. So like, is this treasury to just the directors themselves? Because if so, then I'm anticipating a better like service capacity allowed to directors via the director officer. Or is this like DAO treasury advisor to the DAO overall at large?
Yeah, well, if it's not mentioned in the Constitution, I think you make a good point. We should make sure we're defining the giving a context. Is it director acting as the treasury officer under the directors, or is it a treasury officer as a, and it's just something to specify. Is it a treasury officer that is an advisor to the DAO Foundation? Trislet, I see part of the treasurer role being to build the transactions and documenting them well enough that the other directors can verify what they are signing.
I agree totally with that.
Yeah, that sounds about right, in my opinion, too.
Perfect, because that's exactly my thoughts on it as well. And so it's not so much liability, Dan, in terms of like Maxi is responsible for the quality of the transactions themselves, or like the execution of it. We as directors choose what we sign and don't sign. That's up to us in our due diligence to examine each transaction. I'm explicitly looking for what's the increased labor load to justify the treasurer role. So the reports are nice, and then spinning up with the transactions and documentation of all the actual mechanical setup. That's nice.
Yeah. Okay. Do we feel like we're pretty content with this proposal here? I think there's some feedback specifically on the terms, the term of the role, and the relation of the role to the rest of the foundation. If you guys want to continue this conversation further, Maxi Crouton, is there a DAO forum post that people can discuss this continued discussion in?
Yeah, I will drop a link in the Discord channel.
Perfect. Appreciate that. Okay, Aavegotchi Anata collaboration. That was posted by Hero. I don't know very much about Anata NFTs, unfortunately. If somebody does know about,
yeah. So Anata is a Moon kick right now. Old friend Moon bought an Anata NFT with his RB airdrop, and he's been exploring over there, and he's gotten pretty bullish, and he sees some synergy potential. So Anata is an on-chain NFT that is used as kind of like your on-chain VRM model. So it's like a three-dimensionally rendered wafu. And so they're cute. There's like 1,900 of them. They're pretty high commodity in that 0.7 to 2 ETH range floor zone. It's just a different project doing a different thing, that somebody is exploring a synergy potential, I would approach this Anata proposal a little bit kind of like a Nouns Aavegotchi proposal type situation. So someone is making a proposal for some synergy deal making. Some gotchis go to them, some Anatas come to us. The thing that killed me in the proposal initially is that something like 4 to 7 Anatas are being requested to be secured. And I just don't know what we'd do with them, quite honestly. We could be creative and see it, but the custodial ownership or group community ownership of these Anatas, I'm trying to find the use case of who would be doing the puppeteering quite literally. But it's a synergy proposal at its highest level.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate him putting this up here and putting the request out there. But I think in terms of like collaborating with other projects, especially if it's the DAO, I would at least, at minimum, probably like to speak to the Nata founder and even get a vision for what they're trying to do, and have a deep understanding of how their project could help us and how we could help them. If it's mutually beneficial, then it makes sense. Spending $10,000 on 4 to 5 of these things, I mean, we might as well, there's like hundreds of other NFTs I could think of that I would like the DAO to buy, but I don't really have a specific opinion of this one, and I don't know how many Anata NFT fans that we have in the DAO, but if it's a significant amount, and we know the project, and they're that project is willing to come over on our side here and kind of discuss some synergies, I think maybe there's an opportunity there. But I don't.
It's a pretty good test right now too, because we're seeing a little bit of momentum on the approval portion of it. I just want to see how many people. If there's an opportunity for our community to approve the synergy with none of us really having ever utilized the project or know anybody from it.
Yeah, I don't love the idea, to be honest. I mean, I think there's better ways to spend this money. If we can spend 20,000 DAI on this thing and not to fund a media team, I don't know what to say about our DAO. But if people have strong opinions on Anata NFTs or why the DAO should have 5 of them, I would love to know. See, Hardcore requested to speak. Welcome. Oh, Hardcore, you're just hanging out up here. All right, I just want to finish this up quick so I can let you guys go. We have one more proposal here. External proposal, Origin Protocols OUSD for Treasury. This is not Dr. Wegme's proposal from what I understand. This is just a facilitation on behalf of Dr. Wagme, so appreciate that. Author is Slagathor, the Mammoth King. If you're in here and you would like to discuss OUSD, I do not know very much on OUSD, so I will get you up here. GM, sir. Slagathor. Sorry.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Awesome. So yeah, I was on this call, I think maybe just a week ago, to discuss this proposal. Essentially taking a small portion of the idle DAI and converting it into OUSD would generate passive yield for the treasury without having to manage a position. The yield would, right now, it would probably be around 5%, but it could range, like I say in the proposal, between, on the low end, 4%, on the high end, almost 200% on any given day. It's a heavily audited, solid stablecoin to convert into.
Okay. So apparently this was discussed last week. I wasn't here for that. Or yes.
Yeah, it was discussed pretty thoroughly last week when I ran through everything.
Okay.
I mean, I'm happy to answer any other questions while I'm on the stage here.
Yeah, sorry, I was off there. So, I mean, are there any specific questions regarding OUSD for treasury yields?
Was that directed to me, or is that the
No,
community?
I'm asking community here. Sorry,
Okay.
if there's any burning questions from last week, just to make sure that we covered our bases here. I got several people typing. unrelated stuff. I guess I'll ask you in the meantime, are there any, as someone who's putting this proposal out there, are there any risks that you see with implementing this proposal if it was to pass?
It's I mean, there's always going to be risks
Yeah, of course.
in this industry,
Yeah,
but
of course.
it's essentially a lot of the same risks that you would get with holding DAI. I mean, smart contract risk is probably the biggest risk. I guess you could argue that there might be counterparty risk, but I pretty much go through all of like the largest risks in the proposal itself and what we're doing to mitigate them. Like I mentioned earlier, it's very, very audited. We've done probably, I don't know, 10 audits in the last 2 years on the smart contracts. We are in the middle of our 11th right now, and we have opens up on retainer. So we're going to be doing quarterly audits.
Okay.
Pretty much indefinitely at this point, because the last thing we want to happen is to have someone lose money.
Yes, of course. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So this is a OUSD for Treasury yield. Looks like we have 1.6 million votes out of 9 million. So it's not met quorum just yet. And you still have, I believe you have till April 8th for those of y'all in here to vote on this. Some early feedback from this is Dr. Wagney. Some early feedback from the community is that OUSD isn't quite a good fit yet. It's not on Polygon, which is a barrier. Some community members are concerned about the smart contract risk. It's up for a vote now, so we can see how the community feels about it overall. Regardless of this specific proposal, we need to continue discussions on how to generate yield from our treasury and keep our DAO sustainable. Absolutely. Wise words from Dr. Wagney.
So that is correct. It's not on Polygon. That's probably, I guess, the only or the biggest blocker with making an investment like this. It is only on mainnet for the time being. We hope to eventually launch on Polygon and other L2s and sidechains, hopefully later this year or next year. But we are only on mainnet for the time being, so you would have to convert from Polygon back to mainnet for that investment. But part of the reason why we haven't yet launched on a different chain is because we were making sure that everything was flawless on mainnet first before doing alternate chains.
Okay, I'm sure. Well, honestly, if you guys move to Polygon, I'm sure you're going to win some hearts there because we are very much Polygon maxis over on this side of the pond, even though we do love Ethereum as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Polygon maxi myself for my own investing.
Nice.
So I hope it happens sooner than later.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming up here. I don't see any other really burning questions, so I think we must have done a really good job covering it last week. So, yep, nothing here specific. So, yeah, hope the proposal goes well, and we'll follow up on it next week. Yeah, thank you for joining us here. By the way, really cool Discord name.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, folks. I don't want to take too much more of your time. We've gone kind of over our regular time here, but we discussed a lot. A lot of clarity was brought by this meeting here today. I appreciate all 50 people sticking around and following this conversation here. We are, forming the future of governance. We are shaping the future of governance both in Web3 and elsewhere. So without knowing it, I think we're doing something really important here. And, we'll continue doing these meetings so long as people want us to do them. Do we have anything else? Any last announcements before we end off here for today or tonight for some of y'all?
No, I just did I miss was there a discussion on the kinship channeling?
Yeah.
Or is that going to happen another time?
Well, I just went through the proposal. There wasn't actually a discussion on it, but we can get Al up there next week to discuss it. I think we've had significant discussion on it already, with Yannick and everything. I don't think there's really anything a lot more to add there besides that there's been some more clarity, which is mentioned in the proposal too. So if there is anything to say on it, Al or anybody can speak on it here, but I didn't see anything new, to be honest.
Yeah.
They mentioned the
Well,
risks. The proposal is actually really well written, even compared to the last one. It mentions risks and stuff in there. So, yeah, I think it's well done in terms of proposal writing. Just trying to read some comments here. The vote.
I think our opinion, at least my opinion, personally, not speaking as Pixelcraft, but I think it adds a little bit of. I think I said this at the initial, well, like when it was initially created, like several months ago. I think it's an interesting idea. It's a cool trade-off. It does add some more pressure to have rarity farming seasons. That is a little uncomfortable, I guess. Because if we're not having rarity farming, there'll be more likelihood of people kind of trying to get more rarity farming that the DAO can't necessarily fund that easily. Dr. Webby says, are the proposers for the kinship channeling also performing the smart contract work, UI suggestions, and educational blog posts? No,
well,
I don't. I have not heard from Al or Yannick. Hasn't been anything from them about implementation. So that is also kind of a bummer because something like this would be ideal for a team like Yannick and his team to maybe do, or in the future. We're not that far away from a future where people who create these kind of proposals actually need to implement them as well. We can help audit them, but if we're expecting Pixelcraft to do all this, now that initially it was a fairly simple proposal, but since we added in the complexity of having like the approval, that's actually quite a bit more work to do on all fronts: the UI front, the education front, and the smart contract. Yeah, it would have been nice if they had asked, if the proposal authors had asked for some funding to implement it, taking some key cue from the Forge team.
Yeah.
So that's our opinion. We will probably do it, but you guys are on our timeline if we're doing that. This is definitely not it's passed by the DAO, so we'll allocate some bandwidth to it. But we've also got other kind of bigger things that we're working on.
Yeah, so it looks like people do have some concerns around this. The idea of the rarity farming concern, the complexity of the mechanic, implementing the mechanic, and so there's a few aspects here that maybe are going uncovered. And so what I would like to see maybe is, well, I kind of agree with what McCallum is saying here. Maybe this passes as an idea. If it passes as an idea implemented, the idea gets approved, and then how is it going to be implemented could be a subsequent proposal. So maybe this one is just, do we even want this? If the DAO votes yes, then the second proposal would be to actually the execution of it. So the funding for it, the actual how is it going to get done, and how is it going to specifically get implemented. Al, I can speak to Yannick about a possible implementation schedule and bring it back to the Alchemica and Research Task Force. Good feedback on the meetings mentioned, though.
Yeah, this is a good example of a proposal that in the future, once we have the contracts that are kind of DAO owned, you wouldn't make this kind of proposal. You would that's just a proposal by itself. You would have the code that goes along with it as part of the proposal. But I guess getting to a point where it might be, I guess it might be necessary because you're not even sure if the DAO wants the feature. So it's, I think in the Aave protocol, I'm I'm trying to think how they do that, because you wouldn't want people spending a bunch of time and making a feature that's not going to get passed. There's got to be some, maybe a sig prop step, I guess, but by the time it gets from sig prop to core prop, between that time, that's when you would actually implement it. Maybe something like that.
Yeah, so this proposal doesn't really say a whole lot about implementation. Just the idea of it being implemented.
Yeah,
So this would,
makes sense.
I'd say there'd probably be a subsequent proposal that would have to be, if this passes, have to be put up, by the authors, Yannick, to say this is how we're going to actually implement this. I agree with Dr. Wagme that this is a huge kind of mechanic change and probably affects many different asset holders in our ecosystem. So probably having some sort of a marketing campaign or educational awareness campaign around this change would probably be really important if we were to implement something like this. Okay. Is there anything else, anything more that we have left to this meeting's gone a little bit longer than usual, but I think we had to discuss some things first to get them out of the way. Next week should be a lot more organized. Aavegotchi, I believe this is 2 separate issues. Okay, yeah, that's kind of what we're already talking about. Sorry, go ahead, Coder Dan.
I was just gonna say, you guys might have noticed in Snapshot you can add a comment as well. So if you don't agree or do agree, you can add a comment next to it as you're voting as well. It's a good way to give feedback on things. Just try to keep it, don't get. I've seen some comments that are a bit harsh. Just keep it friendly.
Yeah. So yeah, you can see here on my screen, for those you can see my stream, you can just, once you vote, you can enter your reason underneath. Does the DAO want the recordings of our meetings to be released in full? The Glitter Economic Alchemica Task Force.
Probably wouldn't hurt.
I'd love to see recordings. Yeah.
How long do they usually go for?
Or like at least meeting minutes. What you guys could do is just again like an AI observer that just writes up your meeting minutes for you at the end of your meeting, and then you just have that to publish.
Yep.
Yeah, first meeting is 1.5 hours. Second and all going forward 1 hour. Yeah, Musashi.
Yep, just if you do it in like a Google Meet or Zoom, you can use Firefly's AI. It'll record the entire thing and take notes for you.
Yeah. I'm going to look for a Discord solution. I think Fireflies might work, but I'll reach out to them. I didn't see it on their supported apps. So I'll see.
It's probably like a webhook or something.
Yeah, exactly. I'll see if there's something they can implement on their end to kind of help us out. Okay. That wraps up our DAO meeting. We'll continue onwards next Sunday, 2 p.m. UTC. Appreciate everybody coming out and discussing a whole array of different things going on in the DAO right now.
All right. Thanks, friends. Have a great Sunday.
Yeah, have a good one, everybody.